why my audience?
Why are they oppressed?
Because, first of all, we have attitude. We've got grit. We're real sort of like Groypers with attitude. I think that's kind of what people like about us. Firstly, I'll just say the reason why they're oppressed is these are young guys. These are young, virile, like in many cases, teenagers, 20-something. A lot of people think they're mostly white. There's a lot of Hispanics. There's a lot of black guys. They're mostly guys. And, their whole lives, they have been oppressed. They've been oppressed by, their parents, their libtard parents, if their parents are divorced, or overbearing moms, oppressed by the education system, oppressed by the media. Everything's been taken from them. Their movies, their video games, the women have been alienated and turned against them. Everything's been taken away.
As you might have predicted, after so many years of being in a culture saturated by left-wing identity politics, a subset of the cultural right has decided to ante up and buy into this cheap and regressive game, and that's just great. Fortunately for everyone, an extremely ill-tempered Canadian that has been bitching about the postmodern collectivist left for some time now has already provided the groundwork for addressing postmodern identitarianism on the right. And in this video, we're going to take a look at Fuentes as well as others on the cultural right who aren't even associated with him, and see what they say about the disenfranchisement of men, particularly as it relates to how men are struggling when it comes to relationships and dating, and most interestingly of all, why all of them really don't like Jordan Peterson.
This guy is always fucking running his stupid mouth on the internet, okay, saying, if you're doing pickup artist things, you have problems and this and that.
So let's jump right in. First off, you might think that Nick Fuentes would be a fan of Jordan Peterson, given how much the latter goes after the far left or talks about the same disenfranchisement amongst many men that Fuentes talks about.
A huge proportion of people who are seriously disaffected are men. Most people in prison are men. Most people who are on the street are men. Most victims of violent crime are men. Most people who commit suicide are men. Most people who die in wars are men. People who do worse in school are men. It's like, where's the dominance here precisely?
And now let's cut to Fuentes' perspective on Peterson.
Peterson is such a douche. Does it kill you to smile for a group photo? I mean, that kind of thing tells you everything you need to know about Jordan Peterson. Get over yourself. Get over yourself. You're a self-help guru. You are a glorified self-help guru. Clean your room. Whoa, groundbreaking.
Now, I want to examine what drives the antipathy towards Peterson from the right, because I do think it is similar to what drives the antipathy towards Peterson from the left, which is a general failure of people to take responsibility for their own circumstances. Although on the right, this failure is colored by a particular resentment towards relationships, sex, dating, women in general, to which Peterson has some choice words for in response.
The big problem, I think where the antagonism arises from, is then you've got this conservative establishment. They sort of talk down to these people and tell them that the real solution is something like, learn to code, get a job. Men just aren't doing their part. Like, for example, when it comes to the women conversation, it always comes back to, men just aren't good enough. You need to put down the video games and stop doing this and and it turns into this sort of nagging thing.
One of the things I've said continually, and this is on record in multiple places, it's like, okay, so you're a young man, and all the women are rejecting you. Who's got the problem? It's not all the women. I would say to young men who are irritated at women is, if you're irritated at women, as a class of creature, there's something wrong with you, because they're right. You're wrong. They're right to not pick you. If they're not picking you, it's because they're right. So you have to have that in your mind. And they're not, you cannot be angry at women. It's stupid. Women? It's like women being angry at men. It's a sign of psychological trouble, that.
Now, I can understand how this can be a harsh message, and I think there are some valid criticisms of Peterson's perspective that we'll get to in just a minute. But I think one of the fundamental problems plaguing a lot of young guys who are averse to hearing that message is that they have developed a somewhat unsophisticated understanding of, let's say, female psychology that I think has largely been manufactured in some very suboptimal corners of the internet, which, again, Peterson offers some harsh elucidation on.
I've known enough women to know sort of what's going on. And I think any man who is observant enough, and honestly, like I said, we could go back to great geniuses. We could go back to people that have been in relationships. Like a perfect example is like the pickup artists. Have you ever noticed that pickup artists who have the most relationships with women and the most sex, what they say is that really with women, it's the same bag of tricks. To seduce a woman or whatever. And I think that kind of tells you something about the nature of women, that, you go from woman to woman and it's the same kind of like little tricks, little things you could say or whatever to kind of hack them and whatever. And I think that kind of says it all about their nature.
I follow these pickup artists online, because I'm so curious about their use of psychology. And all they ever do is come up with, it's like a whole horde of men talking about how to deceive and manipulate women.
Maybe we'll run into each other again.
Who knows? Maybe we'll run into each other again.
Look at a woman and go, I wonder what her insecurities are.
It's extraordinarily interesting and extremely psychopathic. And also it's very, 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 very unsophisticated and unskilled. Because what the guys are, they're lumps, basically, and what they're trying to do is to acquire the veneer of sophistication.
This is a demonstration of intelligence, wisdom, sophistication.
So how many bitches you kissed?
5,000.
And that's psychopathic. So anyways, that's my little spiel on pickup artists. But they're very interesting.
Now, I want to broaden this analysis beyond the relatively small coalition of, right-wing authoritarian Zoomers like Fuentes, and into the much bigger and more significant cultural phenomenon of this red pill ideology, the Manosphere, all of that. There's a lot of young guys buying into this ideology or perspective, unfortunately, in my opinion. And I can tell you that many of them do not have a particularly amicable opinion of Jordan Peterson's beliefs either.
This guy is always fucking running his stupid mouth on the internet, okay, saying, if you're doing pickup artist things, you have problems and this and that, and he just sits like this armchair psychology, like, I want to tell you guys today, and just sitting in his fucking dumb chair. Okay, everyone, it's so annoying. Everyone's like, watch this Jordan Peterson video. It's Jordan Peterson. Who gives a fuck about Jordan Peterson, first of all? Second of all, he has a massive fucking drug problem.
Now, it might be easy to mock someone like this, and perhaps some degree of mockery is deserved, but I do want to give a fair shake to some of the more ostensibly reasonable voices in the red pill community, so to speak, like Royo Tomasi, who runs the YouTube channel The Rational Male.
And I was critical of Jordan long before it was cool to be critical of Jordan.
Tomasi offers some criticisms of Peterson, particularly as it relates to Peterson's relative ignorance when it comes to the modern dating landscape, dating apps, and the like.
I think what both of these guys don't understand is that's where we're at in 2021. Dating, mating, family formation, everything we've talked about up to this point in the conversation is all brand management. It's all perception. It's all what does she believe you're going to be like to get to that point where it's like, well, okay, I guess I'll get with him. And I think we were talking about like maximizing your Tinder profile and what you can do with your pictures and how you can use Face App and how you can basically it's all manipulation of the perception of who you are and what you are, right? Who you are when you show up at the date is probably going to be somebody different than who you are when you're on Tinder or Instagram or whatever else, right? It's brand management at this point.
Now, the sad reality is that Tomasi is onto something with dating apps and whatnot, because I'll tell you that I personally, along with basically everyone I know, cannot stand dating apps, okay? Do you think I enjoy trying to cram my absolute dynamite personality into a couple of profile pictures and a witty paragraph? It's like, no, it sucks. And the whole structure of dating apps definitely contributes to the mentality of, well, I'm going to manipulate perceptions and just, to get matches or whatnot. And I can tell you, it is not a fun experience to, match with someone on Tinder or Bumble, meet them, and then find out that they don't really match the expectations that you would get from looking at their profile. And so guys might think, yeah, that sucks, but that's the game that we're playing in today's dating landscape. And so I'm going to play it as best as I can and, do photo editing on my profile and stuff. And as long as I can get to the date and then maybe she'll sleep with me, it's like, it sucks. And one of the problems, I think, is that Tomasi also buys into the same perspective that Fuentes does, in that too much is being asked of men when women should be taking responsibility as well for the state of, dating in Western society.
Guys like Brett Weinstein or Steve Pinker, or Dr. Steven Pinker, especially Jordan Peterson, frustrate the hell out of me is because they don't want to, they just unwilling, just tunnel vision, they got blinders on, they just will not connect that dot. Yeah, women bear a lot of responsibility for this, for where we're at right now. You want to know why family formation is what it is? It's not just because guys don't take responsibility. It's because women are like, why would I bother with these schmucks? I want the best of the best.
And this is where I think Tomasi falls short, because even if it were true that women are put on a pedestal in society and they should adjust their expectations with men, as a young guy, your best bet still is and always will be to assume as much responsibility as you can for your own failings and work to change yourself before expecting society to change for you, right? Because what else are you going to do? You're going to join the Groypers and usher in a patriarchal regime so you can get laid? It's like, no. Tomasi and Fuentes would not have the audiences that they do if there wasn't a real issue of disenfranchisement of men in our society, and it's something I care about a lot. And the worst part of this, in my opinion, is that Tomasi and Fuentes aren't even the worst critics of Peterson. It's the people who attack him for even daring to speak to men to begin with.
I'm asking men to be more honest, and especially in their speech and their thinking, and to be more responsible for themselves and for their family and for their community, and to grow up and to shoulder their burden and to live a responsible and meaningful life, and putting those two things together conceptually. And it's like, and then there's an accusation about that as if there's something wrong. And I thought, well, why am I even playing into this? It's like, fine, I'm talking to men. I'm encouraging them. And I am absolutely thrilled. Like every time someone comes up to me, and that's happening, I mean, maybe 100 times a week or something like that, and tells me one of these stories about how they put their life together. It's like, I'm absolutely thrilled about that. And so I don't see, it's just a sign of how pathological our times have become, in some sense, that there would have been any guilt about that to begin with. Because how is that not a good thing, man?
So hopefully you understand the current cultural moment a little better after watching this video. As always, good luck, Godspeed. And if you need help with your Tinder profile, don't ask me.